I'm really a pretty simple man. Not as in simple-minded, but as in it doesn't really take much to make me happy. I don't need a huge house or a new car every 2 years. I just need a place to call home, good food, a little alcohol occasionally, and every now and then a woman to be with. Preferably, a woman to share my life with. Again, I just want to be comfortable and relaxed with my significant other. My perfect day would be spending a couple hours fishing, working on an older muscle car or pickup, firing up the barbecue in the evening while enjoying a soda or two, eating a nice dinner, then spending a quiet evening with a glass of soda while cuddling up with my wife and a good book. Simple. Very low maintenance. I'm going to admit right here, I am no movie star, athlete, or model. I'm actually rather average. I'm 5 feet 10 inches tall, brown hair, brown eyes, and in fairly decent shape. Right now, I'm 51 years old. Isabella is 45 years old, and she is still rather attractive. Her long, lustrous, shiny black hair hangs down to the middle of her back. Yes, she is Hispanic. That's pretty common for someone from Costa Rica. She stands at 5 feet 4 inches with a nice body shape. We've been together for just over 5 years now. I connected with her about a year after I moved here, and we've been together ever since. A typical day for me starts at 5 a.m. I get up, shower, and get dressed, have some coffee, eat breakfast, and head to my boat. I always make sure to give Isabella a hug before I leave. Most days I spend most of the morning out fishing, but then come back and sell most of what I catch to the local shops off the dock. I occasionally have a charter for the tourists to help with my income. I don't need the extra money though. I have enough saved to live pretty much the rest of my life. As I stated above, I really don't need a lot of money to have a nice life, especially here. Once I've sold off what I've caught, I head back to the house, where Isabella has lunch ready. After lunch, I clean any fish that I've brought home and head into the garage to tinker with my latest toy. Right now, it's a 1967 GMC pickup that I'm building up. After a couple of hours, I'll get a glass of bourbon or a bottle of soda and relax out on the porch. Later, I'll fire up the BBQ and cook the steaks, fish, or chicken that we will have for dinner. Isabella will usually join me with a glass of soda while we discuss our days as I'm grilling the food. After dinner, we both clean up and snuggle up on the couch as we read our books and talk about whatever subject comes up. Bedtime typically, though not always, finds us cuddling before falling asleep in each other's arms. We are both very happy and content. It really is an idyllic life. We do occasionally visit the local bar for dinner, drinks, and a bit of dancing. We do occasionally have friends over for an evening, so we are not hermits. It is a rather small town on the coast, and I am well known and liked. I could picture myself living out the rest of my life here until I saw her in the bar that evening. Isabella and I were spending a nice evening in the local bar with a couple of friends when she walked in with a group of 5 others. They were evenly split between boys and girls college age. They were probably here on spring break from school. There was absolutely no way that I could miss her. I couldn't believe it. Danny Johnson was my best friend. He knew that I wouldn't be home, so what was he doing here? Something wasn't right. I decided to just drive past and park a bit down the street. I got to a spot where I was a way off, but could still see my front door. I watched as the jerk got to the door, pulled out a key, and let himself in. What the heck? I called the office and told them that I was tied up on the project and would be late getting back. I got out of the car and walked back to the house and went around to the backyard. I knew that there was a small gap at the bottom of the blinds to our bedroom, and that the blinds on the patio door were usually left open. Sneaking around the back of the yard, I was able to hide behind some bushes so I could see through the French doors. There was my wife in a robe hugging my former best friend passionately. Yep, I already had my cell phone out and was videoing it. When they moved towards the hallway, I also moved so I could peek through the bedroom window. I caught it all with my phone. I had to stop recording after. I left soon after. I just couldn't take watching anymore. I was numb when I got back to the office. I really had no idea that she would cheat on me. I needed more information. After a couple of hours, my engineering brain kicked in. I had a problem. Engineers solve problems. That's what we do. I could figure this out. I just needed a bit more time, so I called Patricia and told her that I would be a couple of hours late getting home. This really wasn't that out of the ordinary for me though. While it didn't happen often, there were times when I needed to stay a bit late, so she had no reason to be suspicious. I went online and found what I needed. Several small Wi-Fi security cameras. Those pesky little devices aren't cheap, but I'm the one that handles the finances, so she would never see the bill until it was too late. I had them shipped to my office. I couldn't take the chance of her seeing them when they were delivered to the house. I then went to our finances and began making a few moves with our savings and retirement accounts. It was just some small stuff. The rest would wait. The last thing I did was to begin researching divorce laws. It wasn't pretty, so I needed to investigate further. Now, for the hard part, I needed to act as natural as possible for the next week or so. I couldn't allow her to get an inkling that I knew what she was doing. I somehow managed to get away with it. I told her that I thought that I might be catching that cold that seemed to be going around. I wasn't sick enough to stay home, but it was best if I avoided close contact. I got the cameras and software on Friday a couple of days later. I packed them in my briefcase before I went home. Still had the cold, but was getting better. Best to keep distance still. The next morning, Patricia went shopping. I took that opportunity to hide a couple of cameras in the bedroom. I also managed to hide a couple more in the living room and kitchen while the kids were out. I hid the recording unit in the attic. Patricia never went up there, so it was safe. I spent time with the kids on Sunday, just doing dad stuff. I barbecued some steaks for dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed. I was emotionally drained at work on Monday. My mind kept wandering, thinking about what I would discover on the cameras later. I couldn't focus on my work. The day ended, and I finally went home. Patricia did notice something off, but I told her that there was a work issue that I was dealing with. I fixed myself a cold drink and went upstairs to shower and change. Patricia was busy in the kitchen, so I was able to sneak upstairs and download the video onto a flash drive. After dinner, I told Patricia that I needed to go into my home office to check on our finances and investments. After closing the door and turning on the laptop, I inserted the flash drive and began reviewing the videos. It didn't take too long to fast forward to the point where Danny walked in. There was footage of them being together in the living room again, him hugging her passionately. I would need to review this in more detail tomorrow at work. Patricia noticed that I was still down when we were going to bed. I explained again that it was a work issue and couldn't discuss it, but I would probably end up having to let go of someone I liked. She understood, and she knew how much I hated having to do that. The next morning, I got even more surprised. That's when I was listening to the audio part of the recordings. "So when are you going to kick Damon out and run away with me?" Danny asked. "I can't for a while yet," she responded. "I want to wait until the kids graduate high school. It would be too much for them before that. Besides, he makes really good money, and I want to build up a nice savings before I leave." "You dislike him that much?" "No, I like him okay, and he's providing for me pretty well, but I never really loved him. I always just saw him as a means to financial security. The thing is that once I divorce him, I'll need as much of his assets as I can get to live like I want to. It isn't that I really want to take advantage of him. It's just that I want to make sure that I live comfortably the rest of my life without needing to work." "Why not find a partner who is more compatible with you?" he asked. "What? Like you? Are you planning to divorce your spouse? Besides, she would take you to the cleaners too, and you don't make enough to support me in the lifestyle I desire. I would still have to get a job to make ends meet, just like Don is doing right now. What if he finds out about us? He might kick you out." "He might try, but then I would just present him with my plan. If he did that, I would seek a fair settlement in the divorce. I haven't worked since our marriage, so I would be entitled to financial support, as well as child support for our kids, their education and health care. I would also aim to receive a portion of our savings and retirement funds, and I would get the house in full custody of the kids." After hearing all of that, he would have no choice but to accept it. If he protests, I'll simply withhold certain privileges from him. Believe me, if he wants to start trouble, I won't hesitate to make things even more difficult for him. All right, I've heard enough. It's time to make a decision. The rest of the day, I spent researching divorce laws in this state. It was quite challenging. I walked over to our legal office and discussed it with one of my friends who is a lawyer. We talked for about an hour. Even though that wasn't his specialty, it was clear that I would have to, at the very least, provide financial support and give her the house, half the savings, half the retirement, as well as a significant monthly payment to support her, considering she has never had a job during our marriage. Nope, the state doesn't consider her actions in this situation. Also, if she hires a formidable lawyer, it could be even worse. Oh no, I was in a difficult situation. There was only one thing I could do, and it would be extremely painful. It took another 2 months to get everything arranged. It was costly, but much cheaper than the alternative. I managed to obtain counterfeit documents that were professionally made through some old friends from high school who followed a different path. I gave my notice at work and withdrew my retirement savings. I also refinanced the house for its full value and put that money into offshore accounts. Yes, it would negatively impact my credit for the next 7 years, but I didn't care. Going online, I created a couple of offshore bank accounts under different names in Belize and the Cayman Islands. I gradually moved money from our investments and savings into my offshore accounts, ensuring that the amounts were random and below the reporting threshold. Only a few more tasks remained. For those 2 months, I regularly visited ATMs and withdrew a couple $100s in cash, which I then deposited into another bank account in just my name before electronically transferring it to one of my offshore accounts. Through this, I successfully depleted our accounts to only a couple $1,000s. I also sold my car for $20,000, and the cash went straight into the offshore accounts. Patricia left for her gym session early in the morning. She did that about 3 times a week. I had informed her that I was taking a day off to make up for some extra time I had put in. I was planning to relax, as work had been particularly demanding. As soon as she left, I entered the office and turned on my laptop. All the videos and other evidence I had gathered were already saved on 4 USB drives, which were linked to the cloud. I had already prepared and scheduled a mass email with the link and access information. Before sending the email, I completed the final transfer from all our checking, savings, and investment accounts to the new offshore accounts I had set up. I then closed all the accounts and changed the mailing address to a P.O. box that a friend would monitor and discard any mail for the next 2 months. I kept the checking account's address the same since Patricia was aware of it, and she could potentially inquire about it at the bank. I couldn't have her camping out and observing what was happening. Besides, the checking statement would only show one last transfer to a dummy account of less than $1,000. Worst case scenario, it's a minor case of theft. Once that was done, I sent the email to all our friends and her family. Then, I reformatted the computer and inserted another flash drive with a destructive virus that would irreparably damage it. I took all the account statements and paperwork, went outside to the grill, and burned them, leaving no trace of where the accounts had been. It's quite difficult to find an account that you don't even know exists or where it might have been. By the time anyone could figure out what happened, I would have already transferred the money a few more times and erased any trace of it. The last thing I did was get in my car with my briefcase and 1 suitcase and left for the airport. I made 3 stops along the way. 1 to the school of each of my children, where I dropped off a flash drive in the office to have them give it to my children, and 1 more stop to Jerk's house where I gave the last flash drive to his very confused soon-to-be ex-wife. I parked the car, left the keys in it, and walked to the terminal. 6 different flights, 3 rental cars driving to other airports, in 4 countries, over a week's time, and I landed in Costa Rica to begin my new life with my new identity. Oh, before you think of me as a complete jerk, I should mention that I had set up a trust fund for my kids that would pay for all of their schooling, as well as ensure that they each got enough money to take care of what they needed. My friend at work agreed to be the trustee for the fund. He was to make sure that they got what they needed, but not 1 penny could be used by my wife. Food and rent for the kids were included, so she would have a decent place to live and food to eat, but no extras. Of course, the bank would be foreclosing on the house, so she would need to find somewhere to rent. Because of everything I had done and the investments that I made, 6 years later I had over $5 million in banks and investments. Sherry spring break on my junior year of college. I was studying engineering like my daddy did. I haven't seen him since he left home 6 years ago. My goodness. The mess he left was horrible. I understand why he did it. He left all 3 of us a flash drive showing what Mom was doing. I couldn't believe it when I heard her tell her lover what she was planning on doing to Daddy. I have to admit, it was a hard time for a while. Mom lost the house, and we had to find a much smaller house that we could rent. Mom even had to find a job. Oh, she hated that. At least Dad left us a trust to take care of us. We never lacked for food or anything else we needed. We did need to account for things. It was very specific, nothing for Mom. If she needed clothes, she had to come up with the money somewhere. She always had enough to eat, and she was living at the rental with us, so she had shelter, but it was pretty bleak for her otherwise. Thankfully, I was only there until I graduated. Mom and Danny fought a lot. Oh yeah, Danny's wife pretty much took advantage of him in their divorce. Mom and Danny ended up moving into a small single-bedroom apartment, after I left for college and the trust stopped paying for the house that we were living in. They couldn't afford the rent after that. Anyway, a couple of my friends got a really sweet deal on this small resort in Costa Rica for spring break. It was a smaller resort that was a bit out of the way from the main spring break destinations. So, since we were kind of not in the mood for the heavy partying that we'd done the last couple of years, we decided to go there. There were 2 rooms, the boys in one room and girls in the other. Yeah, we were 3 couples, but I wasn't really that serious with the guy I was with at the time. We had some fun, but I think that both of us knew that there wasn't really a future with each other. We had been there for 2 days when the guys decided that they wanted to try out some deep-sea fishing. US girls just wanted to do a little sunbathing on the boat. After being pointed to a local bar where some boat owners that occasionally took out charters were, we walked over and went in. We had just gotten to the bar to inquire who we might talk to about chartering a boat as we were ordering some drinks, when I caught a glimpse of an older couple sneaking out the door. I just caught a glance at the side of the guy's face, but something about it struck me as odd. I couldn't put a finger on it, but there was something about the face. Anyway, the bartender pointed to a table and began fixing our drinks. Drinks in hand, we went over to talk to the 2 couples that were seated at the pointed-out table. Josh, one of the guys in our group, inquired about chartering a boat for tomorrow, indicating that the bartender had pointed them out as possibly be able to help us out. Oh, he was probably talking about David, but you just missed him. He and Isabella just left. One of the men said. Darn, Josh replied. Is there any way that we can get in touch with him? We really want to go out tomorrow. Well, the old guy began. Probably the best bet is to be down at his boat before 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. He usually takes it out for some fishing around then. Just go down to the docks and look for the DidSheReally, Patricia. What did you say? I screamed. I said to look for a boat called the DidSheReally, Patricia. That's David's boat, he replied, looking confused. Oh my goodness. It can't be. I whispered to myself. What's wrong, Sherry? Nick, my boyfriend, asked. I saw the 2 couples' eyebrows raise when he called me by my name, the name of the boat. Do you know my middle name? It's Patricia. I'm DidSheReally, Patricia. Patricia is my mom's name. My family has a tradition of the oldest son having the father's first name as a middle name. My parents extended that to have their daughter's middle name be the mother's first name. He named his boat after me. I suddenly realized what it was about the glimpse of the side of that face was. Oh my goodness. Come on, we need to go now, I told my friends. Looking at the 2 couples, I asked, where is his dock? I need to get there before he leaves. As I said, he usually doesn't leave until about 6. No, he's leaving now. He saw me, and he's running again. I need to catch my daddy before he leaves me again. The silence that came over the bar was deafening. The looks of total shock on the 2 couples and all of my friends would have been comical if I hadn't been on the verge of a complete breakdown at the moment. You are sure? The older gentleman asked. After nodding my head, he stood up and began moving towards the door. Come. I will show you. It wasn't a large town, so we got there in only a few minutes. Seeing his boat, I ran down the dock and jumped onto it. He wasn't there. I turned to my friends. Go back to the resort. I'll see you there in the morning, I said. Are you sure? We should probably stay to make sure you are okay. He could hurt you or something. After all, it might not even be him. No, I'm sure. I need to do this alone anyway. This is a private matter. Besides, if I'm wrong, he won't come here until the morning, and you guys will be here early in the morning when he gets here anyway. If I'm right, he will be here shortly to get away, and having all of us here will just scare him away. Now go. I don't want him seeing you. After a couple more assurances, they left, but I knew that they wouldn't go very far before hiding out and watching. Sure enough, it was only 10 minutes later that a pair of headlights neared the dock. I hid in the cabin as the 2 figures got out of the vehicle and began carrying their items towards the boat. I had texted James and Mike to get on a conference call with me, and it was an emergency. As soon as they were on, I told them to keep quiet and that I was putting them on speaker. Whatever they heard, they were to remain silent unless I told them otherwise. After getting their assurances, I set my phone on the table beside me. David, shoot. 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 And double shoot. What the heck was she doing here? Did they somehow manage to track me down? Did she know that I was here? Or was this one of those random coincidences that karma throws at you to mess everything up? At least I saw her before she saw me, and I don't think that she even saw me as we left the bar. Still, I couldn't take that chance. If they were looking for me, I still had a pretty good shot at escaping. Assuming that they weren't sure that I was here, I had changed enough that any old photo probably wouldn't work to get anyone here to recognize me. On top of that, I had completely changed my identity, so no one here would know anything about Damon Lewis. As we were carrying our food and luggage to the boat, I glanced at the name. Darn it, why did I have to go and name my boat after her? Another reason to get out of here before she could see it. Gosh, how long had she even been here? It didn't seem like she had just arrived. Come on, Bella. We need to get moving. I figure at least a week, possibly 2, and we can come back. I said to her as I was setting down the cooler on the deck. Excuse me. Are you David Knight? My friends and I would like to discuss the possibility of chartering your boat for the day tomorrow. I heard a melodious voice say from inside the darkened cabin. No, 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 no. Don't let it be her. Sorry, but it isn't available. I have another job with my boat that will take the next 2 weeks, and I need to get moving to be on time. Can't help you, and I really need you to get off my boat now. I'm in kind of a hurry. Seriously, Daddy? You're gonna run out on your daughter again? She said. I tried. I really tried. I used all my willpower to tell her that I didn't know what she was talking about. It didn't work. I just couldn't say the words. She turned on the light, and I turned to face my beautiful baby girl. One look at her, and I fell to my knees sobbing. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I just couldn't think of anything else to do. It was the hardest thing in the world for me to leave you and your brothers. You were my entire world, but I just couldn't stay. I blubbered. Dad, you left us without a word. You never even said goodbye. No word, no anything. For 6 years, we didn't even know if you were alive. She scolded. I know, baby, and I'm so sorry, but I just couldn't take the chance that she would find me. I couldn't tell you goodbye because she might have discovered what I was doing. Believe me, baby, I have hated that every day for the last 6 years. Yet you were just about to run away from me again. Yes, I didn't think that you saw me. I wasn't sure if you were here looking for me, or if it was just a coincidence. If it was just a coincidence, I figured it would be less painful for you if you never knew that I was here. If you are looking for me, I couldn't take the chance that you would tell your mother or the authorities where I am. Well, the second part makes sense. After all, you are probably looking at some prison time if they can ever extradite you back to the States. Of course, that's if your wife didn't find a way to get here and hurt you first. She really had a wicked smile. I'm sorry for what I put you through, baby. I wish I didn't have to, but I just couldn't go through with what she had planned. I would have been humiliated by her, or she would have ruined me and never allowed me to see you again while I was paying her to do inappropriate things. No matter what I did, if I had stayed, I would have lost all of you. I figured that, since I was going to lose you and your brothers anyway, at least this way I could provide you with everything you needed and keep some of my dignity. I'm really sorry for what happened. I truly wish that there had been another way. So I assumed that as soon as I get off this boat, that you are going to leave then. I did have a bit of a chuckle at that. No. I figure that it would take your mother a minimum of 3 days to get here. Getting the authorities involved takes even longer for them to act. I'll stick around for a couple more days. Besides, I have a line on a small group that might be interested in chartering my boat tomorrow. She smiled. Only if I get the family discount. Now, are you going to introduce me to your friend? After introductions were made, Sherry asked, why haven't you gotten married yet, since it appears that the two of you are in love? 2 reasons, actually. First and foremost, as far as I know, I'm still married to your mother. Second, I will only marry someone with my real name. Should I use that, I could be tracked down, and that could cause a lot of issues. She got an evil grin, then said something that dropped my chin to the floor. Hey Mike, you're the lawyer here. What do you think about what he just said? I almost passed out when I heard his voice. My eyes suddenly zeroed in on her cell phone that was sitting beside her. Well, Dad, since Mom actually managed to divorce you last year for abandonment, you are free and clear on that front. Secondly, while it is technically true that you could be found by using your real name, that would require either a lot of money for an investigation or a tip-off from someone to point them in the right direction. Even then, it would take money to verify it and then do something about it. Speaking personally, after going through all the information that you left me, I have absolutely no intention of telling Mom anything that she might be able to use to track you down. Besides, she and Danny Boy are barely scraping by right now, so I highly doubt that she will ever be able to come up with the funds to even try to find you. That's just me personally. I can't speak for Sherry or James, though. I also happen to agree with Mike, Dad. I am going to tell Mom that I spoke to you on the phone, but I have no idea where you were when you called. I heard James's voice over the phone. Sure, it was kind of tough on us for a while, but I blame Mom for putting us in that position. I was mad at you for a while, but then I realized the position that she had put you in. See, Daddy? You have nothing to worry about from us. There is a catch, though. You need to invite all three of us to the wedding. I'm also planning on being here for summer break, so you better make sure you have room for me to stay for a couple of months. Sherry added. Isabella and I talked with Sherry and the boys for a bit longer before they needed to hang up. Sherry then went out onto the deck and called for her friends to come aboard. She laughed when they asked how she knew that they were still there. Everyone had a great time the next day out on the ocean. I did give them the family discount free. Sherry spent a bit more time with me over the rest of the week before she had to go back to school. True to her word, she spent 2 months over the summer with us. I had some additions made before the next summer when the boys would be coming out also. Isabella and I were married that summer while all 3 of my children were there. 5 years later, are you ready, princess? I asked. More than ready, Daddy, Sherry replied. I almost fell to the floor in laughter at the looks on Patricia's and Danny's faces as I walked by baby girl down the aisle. Danny had been perturbed when Sherry had bypassed him and asked James to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. What they didn't know was that it was a plan. I was the one who was actually going to give her away. Yes, James was totally in on it. They did that to hide the fact that I would be there. Isabella told me later that she had quite a few questioning looks as Mark escorted her to the front pew. It wasn't until I had finished my role and sat beside her that people began to understand what was happening. Who gives this woman away to be wed? Asked the preacher. Her father does, I said. I felt the glare on my back from Patricia. Oh, she knew that the kids had been in contact with me. She just didn't know how much. She also had no idea where I was. When I excluded her from giving Sherry away, I thought that she would blow a gasket. It wasn't until later that she finally figured out how Sherry and Noah could afford such a nice wedding and reception. It was a beautiful ceremony, and Noah is a really great guy. I could see it in their eyes when she brought him out to meet me. Their love was real and going to last. We need to talk. Patricia hissed at me as we were making our way to the reception hall. I really don't think that is necessary. I already know that I didn't do anything wrong, and I have no interest in whatever excuses you have for cheating on me. I replied. You stole all my money. Well, I just figured that it was all back payment for what you were taking from me and giving away to someone else. Did you really think that I was going to either go along with you cheating on me and having to pay you to do it? With that, I turned my back on her and left. The reception was a blast. I had paid for a full hosted bar. When the DJ called for the father/daughter dance, Danny stood up and began walking towards the dance floor. Sherry just blew right on past him as if he wasn't even there and grabbed my hand to lead me out to dance. Of course, Isabella and I danced quite a bit that night as well. My 2 sons also made a point to dance with her on a few occasions. James' wife and Mark's fiance both asked me to dance with them a couple of times. How could I refuse? They both flatly rejected Danny when he asked them to dance. I think that's what finally sent him over the edge. As I mentioned, it was an open bar. Danny apparently was taking full advantage of that. He had been humiliated all day, from the time that I walked my daughter down the aisle instead of him, to being excluded from being mentioned and giving her away, to being ignored during the father/daughter dance, and being flatly rejected when asking my son's wife and fiance. He was feeling his liquid courage when he finally decided to try and put me in my place. He actually had the nerve to ask Isabella to dance. She never even said a word. She just looked at him for a minute as if she were looking at a bug that had just landed beside her, then turned and resumed the conversation she was having with the couple next to her, as if he wasn't even standing there. I saw his face turn white, then red with anger. Several other people also had stopped their conversations and were watching. I had moved right behind him as he pulled back to take a swing at my wife. Catching his swing in mid-flight, I turned him around and informed him that he had worn out his welcome here. I noticed more than a few phones were out recording the action. I remained calm and told him to go home and sleep it off, and if he ever tried to harm my wife again, I would make sure he faced the consequences. Danny had gotten soft and slow over the years. On the other hand, I was lean and strong from working on my boat and cars for years. I lived a simple life, ate healthy, and kept fit. I was also pretty much sober, and he was close to being drunk. I let him take the first 3 swings. I was able to easily block them. I did warn him after the first 2 misses. 3 strikes, and you're out. I defended myself as he attacked. His legs finally gave out completely and he hit the floor, but not until after I managed to get a few good hits to his lower stomach. Once we got him outside away from the cameras, I gave him 3 more good kicks to the lower area. It's going to be a long time, if ever, before he gets it up again. Now, you are probably wondering about me being arrested for what I did. Oh, she tried all right. If she had her way, I would have spent several years in prison because of what I had done. Unfortunately, there were 4 little things that got in her way. First off, she had no documentation on what I had done. She couldn't prove that I actually took any money because I had destroyed all the statements, and she had never bothered to concern herself with how much money we actually had or where it was. As far as the records that were available showed, we were just barely getting by and living paycheck to paycheck. She didn't even have a clue as to where to even begin looking for our investment accounts. My retirement went directly to one of my offshore accounts. Speaking of which, when she finally gave up and filed for divorce because of abandonment, she just went quick and easy. Just a straight split of assets at the time. Of course, there were no assets by that time. Third, all 3 kids agreed to testify that I was living in a rundown house with no known means of income, except for selling a few fish at the local market every day. Finally, all she could prove was petty theft for less than $500. The statute of limitations had long since run out on that. I did agree to give her a check for 60% of what was in the checking account on the day I left, just to show that I was being fair. It came to $576.93. Of course, all the videos showed that Danny attacked my wife first, me second, and I gave him ample opportunity to walk away. It was determined to be in self-defense, and he ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks. He ended up losing the bad job that he had. Epilogue: Patricia ended up divorcing Danny. The damage was too much, and he could never regain his confidence again. Isabella and I stayed in Costa Rica. Even though we could have moved back to the States, we both loved the relaxed lifestyle and affordable cost of living. We do make visits back to the States a few times a year to see the kids and grandkids, though. They also managed to come down and visit regularly as well. We ended up buying a larger house to accommodate them. My anger at Patricia had lessened by this time. While I no longer loved her or wanted her for my wife, I decided that she had faced enough consequences. She ended up moving down to Costa Rica and renting my old house from me. I helped her get a job as a waitress at the local bar. It isn't much money, but at least she can keep a roof over her head and food in her stomach. Isabella and I now visit that bar more than we had in the past. It continues to bother her about what she lost every time she sees us together while she is serving us our drinks. No, we are not worried about her tampering with our drinks or food. I have made it clear to her that she would be left without a home or job in the streets of a less developed country if that were to happen. She would also lose contact with all of her children and grandchildren. She goes out of her way to make sure that we are well taken care of. Got to go. Isabella just came out the back with the steaks and sea bass for me to put on the grill. The kids and their families will be arriving soon, so I need to get dinner going. As I was putting the meat on the grill, Isabella went back inside to check on the house cleaner we hired to get the house ready for the kids. I smiled when I heard her as she addressed the house cleaner. Come on, Patricia, hurry up, the guests will be here soon. We aren't paying you to sit around and waste time. Okay, so maybe I still have a bit of resentment left.